Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the update preview stream. This is Bugs here. I'm joined today by Artemis and Miss D. That's me. Say hi, guys.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, hello.
I love it. I love it.
Well,
Hope
hello, everyone.
everyone's hope everyone's doing well today. We are at the halfway point for the month in Rust development, and as always, we're going to go through what is going on in Rust development for the week. Before we get into it, as always, if you have any questions, feel free to do at Ms. D underscore that's me in chat. We will get to as many questions as we have the opportunity to. Also, if you're wondering about server wipes, well, for Rustafied servers, it is the weekly and bi weekly Thursday wipe servers that are wiping today. That's your mains, your mediums, your trios, your smalls, your Zen Labs, and the like. They do wipe at 3 p.m. local time for the region, which means most have already wiped. The most latest being EU servers wiped 3 hours ago, and AU SEA wiped like 11, 12, 13 hours ago. And the US servers will be wiping at 3 p.m. EST, so 2 hours from now. So that's what's going on with server wipes. It is map wipe only as we are mid month. And I will note, this is an interesting month. It's actually the most interesting February we've ever had, actually, for that I can remember. I don't think this has ever happened in the history of us tracking it, but we have a 5 Thursday February because that's weird. Normally we have 4 Thursdays in the month. Sometimes we have five in a month, but very rarely is it on February. But it's a leap year this year. And so the month started with a Thursday and ends with a Thursday. So that means the bi weekly servers will have another wipe on the last day of the month. And it will be a 1 week wipe going to March 7th, which is the next forced wipe and update. So we got 3 weeks until the next forced wipe and update. And we are seeing some interesting things going on staging. Now, if you were here last week, you would have noticed that they started a new hack week last week. And we saw a bunch of projects on that hack week, and we did discuss some of them last week. And this week, work on those hack week projects continues. So maybe it's more of a hack month. Now, one thing to note with all this hack week stuff is it's not necessarily going to come into the game. There's been very many hack week projects in the past that never see the light of day. And then there's some that do. So, like emojis and stuff. And I think furnaces were originally a hack week thing. There's been a number of hack week things that do make it in the game, but not all of them do. And so I just want to note that before I start going through these things and people say, oh my God, they're adding fucking super jumps into the game, GG survival game. It's like, well, maybe, but maybe not. Probably not. But that does lead me into the first Hack Week project, which is rocket boots. Now, I made a joke last week as we were going through on this stream all the T prototyping stuff. And I said, what's next? Are they going to do a T that makes you fly? Well, it's not a T, but it's some boots that make you fly. So it's the initial concept of a pair of rocket boots. And basically, it will consume a charge when you're flying and then need to recharge once on the ground again for 3 seconds. This is all based on commits, right? So it's just playing with this concept of rocket boots. It, based on the commits, looks like it won't fly too long. So I don't think they'll be like, you'll be like Iron Man flying through the sky. If anything, maybe it'll have a charge of like 10 seconds or so, so you can get like a pretty high jump, maybe a super jump of sorts. But then you'll need to return to the ground and recharge said rocket boots. No real specifics on this yet. I don't know if they're even going to ever get to the point where we can test them. A lot of times, this Hack Week stuff dies on the vine, so to speak, and doesn't even get to a place on staging where anyone can ever test it. But it's definitely an interesting one. And we'll definitely keep an eye on this one and see if it gets merged into staging because, yeah, rocket boots would be quite the concept to go into the game. Now, back down to earth a little bit, there is another Hack Week project which is underway and seeing a bunch of commits. And this is a project around full base heating. And still, as with all this Hack Week stuff, it's hard to see exactly the specifics of how it's going to be implemented and all that stuff. It's all on a separate branch. So we just have the commits to work off of. But what we're seeing is just a concept that would allow players and teams to have their base fully heated. Now, I don't know if this would be with a big, like, centralized furnace in the base or some other system in place, but it would, if implemented, allow people to set up some form of thing that just has their base be heated across the entire base. It would definitely be a nice quality of life thing, especially for people who like to live in the snow and things like that. It would be nice to be able to come home to a toasty, warm, comfortable base after roaming the plains and not have to worry about standing right next to a fire or wearing heavy clothing and all that stuff. So not sure if this one's going to make it in. As with all Hack Week projects, it might not. Now, my concern with this one making it in isn't so much like the same concern as the rocket boots, where it's just kind of, I don't know, maybe completely out of place for the game. Full base heating is totally within the realm of reasonable possibility within the game. But I will just state my concern is that performance is already like not great, right? And specifically server performance, we've got issues with these systems like industrial, and in the past we've had issues with the water systems and water catchers being not performant. And thankfully, those have been fixed. Although we still have outstanding industrial issues where if people set up too complex of a thing with too many loops, then the server can crash. Just that's how the industrial system works right now. It can cause server crashes. My concern and why I mention that is full base heating. There's in the commits a lot of calculations around just figuring out what is a room in the base and what isn't. And so we're seeing a lot of calculations happening. And my concern is if every base then on the server has a shitload of calculations to figure out what the bounds of the base are such that it can provide the comfort and the warmth to a player, are we going to cross a line here on server performance and take a step backwards? Because quality of life is great, right? But if it comes at the sacrifice of server performance, then no one wants it. It's not worth it. So that is a concern of mine around this base heating, especially as I see the commits being very much around calculating the bounds of the base and all that stuff. It's like in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, I don't know if this is going to be a problem. Hopefully it's not, because I do think full base heating would be a great addition to the game. But once again, not at the sacrifice of further performance. Anyway, that's full base heating. Another Hack Week project in the works, and this is for its second week, is vehicle weapons. And this looks like it's additional modules for vehicles, the modular vehicles, to get some weaponry on them. Specifically, what we're seeing is a cannon module for vehicles. And it looks like a lot of the specifics and the nitty gritty for this, based on the commits, have been worked out. We're still not seeing any of this stuff on staging yet. So, not a ton to show off on the stream this week. But nevertheless, based on the commits, the vehicle weapons, at least the cannon module for the vehicle weapons, looks like it's got a lot of the preliminaries in place and could potentially make its way into the game. So we're going to keep an eye on that one. I don't know if any or some of these Hack Week projects will be going live for March if they're shooting for that, or sometimes we also see these Hack Week projects be worked on initially in an initial Hack Week, and then they go into a little concept limbo for a little while and then get picked up later in the development cycle. So, as with all this, we'll keep you posted, but it looks like we could have some cannons uh, shooting out of modular cars in the near future sometime. So, that's interesting. There's also, in Hack Week, more work on T prototyping. Now, you might recall from last week, there were a number of Ts being worked on with this T prototyping. There was like a breathing underwater, tracking animals through objects, increasing your crafting speed, increasing your recycling speed, explosive sense, where it would show an arc and a blast radius when throwing explosives. There's health regen T and auto smelt T. So there's a bunch of T's being worked on, being prototyped, if you will. Along with those T's, what they're working on is a poison effect. And so this is some limitation on the T, so that you can't just get one of every T ready, drink them all, and have all the benefits. It looks like there's going to be a limitation on 3 active T's at a time. And after that, you'll just be poisoning yourself, which I guess does make sense a bit. But on top of that poison element, what we are seeing this week is some new types of teas in addition to the ones we saw last week. So we're seeing a horse laxative tea, which would double the rate of dung production when consumed by a horse for 15 minutes. So if you want some more dung, you could feed your horse that tea. There's also in the same realm a horse speed tea, which would increase the top speed of horses by 30% for 10 minutes after it is eaten by a horse. And there's even, and this is an interesting one, a modular car speed tea, which would double the engine power of a modular car for 15 minutes. I don't know if you're going to feed that tea to the car. I don't know. I'm not sure. Or you drink it and then the car just knows, man, you drank that modular car speed tea, so I better go faster. I'm not sure. So there's some interesting things with the tea prototyping going on. I do feel like we'll probably see some more of these teas come in. Will we see all of them come in? I doubt it. I think the poisoning thing is a good idea, especially as more obscure teas get added. It does make sense to limit the number of teas that people can consume at one time. But it is interesting to see all this tea prototyping happening as part of this Hack Week project. Now, also, we're seeing some stuff outside of Hack Week with regards to the attack helicopter and also patrol helicopter. So we're seeing some patrol and attack helicopter changes going on. Once again, this is outside of Hack Week, so I do imagine it will come in for the March 7th update. But specifically, what we're seeing with the attack helicopter is a delay being added to flares. So flares will only be able to be fired once every 30 seconds. So it's kind of a nerf for attack helicopter. And to go along with this, basically what they're doing is they added some lights to the controls to indicate rocket and flare readiness. And there's also going to be a little ding sound added when flares become available again. So the idea is the pilot will be able to fire the flares off, and then they'll be limited in the amount of flares for 30 seconds. They can't fire any other flares, and then they'll get a notice when they can. So that's an interesting little nerf going on with the attack helicopter. Now, also in the realm of helicopters, the patrol helicopter is getting some changes. Now, these are still in process, so I don't know exactly the final impact that will be for the player, but what we're seeing is the patrol helicopter is going to have slightly more random movement on the map between the stations or the monuments it flies over. So it's going to strafe a little bit differently and maybe navigate the map a little more, especially in certain areas than previously it would have. They've also shifted the accuracy of the rocket fire. So the aim cone is going to be variable depending on the distance. I'm not really sure if this is going to make it more accurate or less accurate. And it's still on a separate branch, so there's no real testing, but it does look like the aim cone and just the rocket fire is going to be modified a bit. And then it will also crash in a more random way. So they just changed the dynamics of how it's, when it is destroyed, how it will go down and where it will go down. And it looks like they're randomizing that process a little bit more. So those are the patrol helicopter changes and the attack helicopter changes. I do once again expect both of these to come in for the March 7th update. With all the other Hack Week stuff, it's really up in the air, and we'll have to see over the next couple of weeks on what gets merged into staging, if anything. Now, there's also a bunch of work on miscellaneous other things as well. There's minigun is back in play. Now, this is a gun that we did see initial commits for last year and maybe the year before. We have known of the concept of a minigun for some time now, but we haven't seen any actions around it until just the other day. And in fact, I think it was just yesterday we saw the minigun get a commit around it, and they're doing some like further development on it. So maybe we'll see a minigun come into the game in the near future. There's also more work on meals, which is another Hack Week project that got started last week. If you missed it, basically there's going to be 13 meals they're playing with. The meals will be comprised of various different raw ingredients that already exist in the game. And then it looks like there'll be a couple ways to cook meals and attachment that is deployed on top of campfires, which makes sense. And then it looks like there's two types of ovens that are being worked on that are going to be similar to furnaces, where I think there's going to be maybe a low grade, maybe a wood oven, and maybe an electrical oven. Not sure exactly. And once again, this might not even make it in, but what I'm picking up on is the idea with these meals is they'd be more nutritious and maybe just provide you with more value as a player than eating miscellaneous meat. So we'll keep an eye on those meals on the Hack Week project and see if that gets merged in. There are also some tweaks to the metal detector stashes. They basically changed the collider bounds of the flag and everything to make it easier to melee dig the stashes up once you've identified the stash with the metal detector and that little flag has come up. They're basically making it easier to smack that little stash to bring up whatever loot is below. They're doing some fixes to map entity loading as well. I think this is in addition to the issues from the force wipe at the beginning of the month, where there were some issues on server restart with map save files getting corrupted. I think that was some issues with the entities loading, and so they're still tweaking some stuff with that. Thankfully, it does look like that big issue that went live with the forced wipe and update at the beginning of the month has been resolved, and so there haven't that I know of been any like need to wipe any servers unexpectedly beyond that, beyond what already happened earlier in the month. So that's good. There's also more work on Tutorial Island, which is all that whole kind of different type of server where new players will be able to load into that server and they'll be on their own small island. And on that island, there's a bunch of different tutorial missions and stuff like that to basically give new players just the basics of the ropes of the game before they get into a normal server. So we're seeing a bunch of work on that tutorial island. No word on when we're going to see that go live in the game, but let's be honest, if you're an established player in the game and everything like that, you're probably not ever going to go on tutorial islands. So it's not that big of a deal to existing players, but should be a very cool thing for new players coming in to be able to get their feet wet without getting rolled by, a 20-man Zerg on the beach. Also, there's some fixes for backpacks working in conveyors. That was just an issue with the industrial system and backpacks being added. They weren't playing well together, and some fixes for that have come in. They're also doing some more work on tweaking the harbor for the cargo ship. This is something we saw starting work on in the beginning of the month, and we're not sure exactly how the harbor is going to be modified for the cargo ship. If the cargo ship's going to go spawn on the map and then make a stop at harbor potentially, or if it'll spawn at harbor and then leave harbor, or exactly how that's going to work. But it does look like they're definitely modifying the harbor to account for some cargo ship activity. And this is, of course, part of a broader project, which was discussed on the first dev blog of the year, where they're basically throughout this year going to be going back through existing monuments and improving them and modifying them and tweaking them and all that stuff. And we're seeing a lot of that on the compound monument as well. But now we're also seeing it on the harbor. There's some initial work on full server demos, which is an interesting thing. I'm not sure exactly how this is going to work or what the use case is. It could be some cool use cases for content creators and stuff like that. Could also potentially have some good use cases for identifying pain points and optimization and things that are happening that they don't want to happen in servers. So that's an interesting one. We'll keep an eye on that. They are doing some optimizations for RPC connections. I have seen in our Discord some complaints about people getting like RPC flood errors this week and everything like that. So I feel like that body of work is around fixing that. There's also more work on some new explosions. And so they're just basically, it looks like redoing the visual effects for all the explosions in the game. And that's going to be cool to see because if you've ever, it's not so apparent when you're just in real time, but if you've ever seen an explosion go off and you've like paused a demo or whatever, you can tell the explosions are kind of low fidelity sprites and stuff like that. So it'll be cool to see some more high fidelity explosions come into the game, especially when it comes to like raiding and stuff like that. It should make it more dynamic and things. And then finally, there's more work on a new truck coming into the game, which is the M939 truck. If you're not familiar, that's a military truck. It's a military transport truck with 3 axles. And if you've ever seen like a movie where they're moving military guys around and it's kind of like that covered truck thing, it's like basically one of those trucks. And so I do think this is going to be something that players will be able to drive around. Not sure exactly how people will get it, if it's going to be similar to like the scrap heli where you buy it somewhere. But maybe this will be like a more full size transport for larger groups on the ground. which is definitely an interesting dynamic potentially coming into the game. And that isn't a Hack Week project, so I do think we will see that at some point come into the game. But that about does it for what's going on in Rust development for this week. Once again, the month is an interesting one. There's 5 Thursdays, even though it is February. So we do have 3 weeks until the update comes out March 7th. And at the end of the month, we will have a 1 week wipe cycle for our bi weeklies. So the mediums and stuff and mediums and trios wipe today, and then they'll wipe again at the very end of the month and have a 1 week wipe cycle leading up to the March 7th update, just to be clear. But yeah, that's what we got going on. Miss D, we got any questions from the audience?
Not a lot, a few. Someone said that it would be cool if they add like a vent system to the game. I think for
Yeah.
the heating, yeah.
Yeah, that could be some sort of ventilation, some duct work or something. And maybe that would be easier for the server to compute because right now it does look like they're just trying to calculate all the rooms of a base. But think about how dynamic base building is. That's a lot to calculate if they just had to calculate what's being hit by a vent. Maybe that would be easier. So interesting point. Yeah.
Is there any word on the base heat system interaction with planters?
No, the thing with the base heating stuff is, and a lot of this Hack Week stuff is, it's all on a separate branch, and it's all very much in its infancy as a functionality. So although they might be taking that into consideration, and probably are, we don't have any insight specifically in how that might be accounted for in the system because it's still on a separate branch. And most of the commits that I've seen are really around just calculating the bounds of a base such that they can control the heating or comfort level in there. So no word on the impact of that with planters, but that definitely will be something that we test if this full base heating makes it into the staging branch.
For sure. And I think it'd be good to test the player interactions too, because that very well could be a new trap base right there.
Ooh, yeah, for sure.
When is a new biome coming, and is there any news on the new monument?
Yeah, they've got the next biome is planned, and I believe it's going by Caldera, I want to say, is what they were calling it. Kind of like a volcanic hot biome, from what I gathered. Not sure the specifics of that, and really don't know when that will make it into the game, and if that will make it into every procedural map, or if that will just be an option for some procedural maps. Maybe larger maps have a extra biome, but no real specifics have come out with regards to that quite yet. But we will keep you posted on that. What was the second part of that question?
Monuments.
Yeah, the monuments. So really, that's a whole body of work they're working on this year around modifying existing monuments. So we've got the compound is seeing a lot of modifications, and it looks like it's going to be really revamped. It's going to have like a city hall building where I get the sense people will be able to go inside and stuff like that, and various other walking bridges and helipads and stuff like that. And then we've also seen work on modifying the cargo, sorry, the harbor for the cargo ship. So we're seeing work on those monuments, but not a ton of work on new monuments. I think a lot of the monument work this year is going to be specifically on revamping and improving the existing monuments.
So I guess that answers the question that just came in. Is there any ETA for reworked power plant?
No ETA on any of these reworks quite yet. I imagine they're going to go kind of one by one or two by two, maybe, because they are kind of working on the compound and the harbor at the same time now. But I imagine we're going to see those go live in the game before we see the other ones be worked on. And I don't really know the order of operations they're planning or what the priority list for monuments is, if power plant is up there on top or if they've got plans for reworking other ones before that. So we'll really just have to wait and see. But I do think over the course of this year, we probably, especially later in the year, will be seeing a good amount of, updates and commits and everything around modifying these existing monuments.
I do just want to remind people to do at Misty_, that's me, if you have questions, so I see them better in chat.
Yes, yes.
It's very helpful. Does patches still cause a force wipe to servers?
No, the patches don't necessarily cause a forced wipe. It really varies on what the change is in the patch specifically. Now, the first Thursday of every month, of course, does include a forced wipe. Do they actually need to do a forced wipe? Do they need to force a map wipe every month? A lot of months they don't. I don't think, but if there are changes to monuments or procedural map generation, then it does require forced. And I think it's a good cycle to be in given the state of the game to force a map wipe every month regardless, just to keep things fresh and optimized and everything like that. But with the patches after the first Thursday, very often they don't force a wipe or anything like that. So it's very common. And even this month, we did see a number of optional client and server patches after the forced wipe, and none of them did really force a wipe. There was, of course, some issues with this force wipe in particular, this update this month, that some servers did have corruption on their save files during server restarts. And that did unexpectedly force a wipe. But generally speaking, the hot fixes and the patches don't force wipes.
Let me see the next one. In the food updates, will there be a vending machine that I can buy food and perhaps Gary bathwater from?
Mm, I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that. I think it could be possible, but I haven't heard any specifics regarding plans for that.
Gary bathwater.
Yeah.
And as always, is there any word on anti-cheats?
Well, we have seen EAC doing some more ban waves over the last week. I dug into them a bit on the stream last week, but we did actually, thankfully, see some more bans from EAC over the past week or so, which is always nice to see. I do fear, you know, the phrase too little, too late comes to mind, if I'm being honest, but nevertheless, it is nice to see EAC doing some things around bans. With regards to our internal anti cheat and the other third party anti cheat we're working with, those continue to see improvements and updates every single week. We keep tweaking things and modifying things with the goal, of course, of having hackers removed from the servers before people even realize that they're in there hacking. That is a lofty goal, and we're not there yet, but we are working towards it every week. And once again, I do thank everyone who gives us qualified reports in the server and in Discord and on our website. If you are playing on a Rustafied server and you see a sketchy player or a flat out hacker, please go to my.rustafied.com. You can log in through Steam and very easily create a new report, report multiple people in one report, provide your evidence, upload clips, all that stuff. And we do get a ton of reports, but a lot of those do end up really helping us pinpoint people and remove people. So a huge thank you to everyone who does give us reports. And yeah, the hacker situation is an uphill battle, and I do hope and intend that EAC continues to improve and get better at it. But do know that also on the Rustified end, on our end, we're working with an external anti cheat, a third party one, and we have our internal systems that we are tweaking and working on improving every single week. So yeah, that's pretty much the state of it. I'll be honest, it's not great. It's not where I want it to be, the situation as a whole, but we are working towards, improving it.
I saw someone said that backpacks should have weight on them. So I guess it impacts you when you walk, that you're like encumbered and
Yeah, I'll be honest, I kind of thought they would. I was a little surprised when backpacks didn't really have any downside with regards to movement speed or anything. At the same time though, Man, don't you hate being like slower when you're moving? If you've ever been like in a game that slows you down based on weight or whatever, it's kind of tedious when you're the one being slowed down, right? So I can see why the devs didn't. Given they didn't on the launch of backpacks, I kind of don't think they're going to be adding any nerfs like that, or anything like that to the backpack system. I mean, they could, but I don't see any sign of it. So I think that was an interesting choice. But as someone who likes not being slowed down, yeah, I'm okay with it.
I'm sure this is a joke, but someone said, "Hey, I just died on a Rustafied server. Can I get my kit back?" That's a
Yeah,
no.
that's a no. We do not return lost loot and we do not interfere with gameplay like that, but RIP your kit.
Yeah. Let's do a recap. Actually, maybe start with when it's whip again, just in case.
Sure, yeah. So we are mid-month, and so there are wipes happening today, as with pretty much every Thursday. With Rustified servers, the wipes happening today are the weekly and bi-weekly Thursday wipe servers. So that's your mains, trios, mediums, smalls, Zen Labs, and the like. And the majority of the wipes already happened. Pardon my brain fart right there. But SCA and AU 11, 12, 13 hours ago, they wiped. EU wiped 3 hours, 3.5 hours ago. And that's EU main, trios, mediums, smalls, Zen Labs, and the like. And the US servers will wipe in an hour and a half at 3 p.m. Eastern. Oh, and solos are wiping as well today because they are bi-weekly. So that's what's going on with server wipes today. For if you're wondering for any other like org or anything like that, definitely check out their website and or their Discord because normally they have the wipe information on there. And if you're ever wondering about wipe information for Rustified, definitely join our Discord. We not only have all the server maps and wipe information, but there's also map voting 52 hours before any wipe. So you can get on there and vote for what map you'd like to play during the wipe and various other things. You can report players in Discord and just get general support in there. So feel free to join our Discord. I look forward to seeing you in there. But yeah, let's give a little recapity cap here. We are on at mid month and in another hack week. So hack week started kind of last week and it continues into this week. A lot of the projects we saw initially started last week for hack week are still getting work this week. So maybe it's more of a hack month. But one of the new ones we got is Rocket Boots. That's a new hack week project. And it's basically, from what we can see, an initial concept for a pair of rocket boots that will allow you to fly up into the air and they will consume charge while you're doing it. And then once you land on the ground after 3 seconds, they'll recharge up. So based on the language they're using in commits, I don't think these are going to be like Iron Man rocket boots where you go from one side of the map to the other. I think it's going to be more like a super jump kind of thing, if anything. But keep in mind, Hack Week projects don't always make it in. So these very well might just stay in concept limbo or on some separate branch forever. So we'll let you know if more comes to light with that, and especially if they get merged in, because that's an interesting one. Also, they are working on full base heating as another Hack Week project. And this is something that I think is a little more realistic and would definitely be a great quality of life to be able to add some sort of larger furnace or something like that to a base and then have the whole base just be consistently heated, provided that thing is running. I do personally have some concerns after just looking at the commits. I have some concerns around the impact this might have on server performance because bases, just in general, are already bad on server performance. A server can run great with no entities on it, but then you do a week or two of people building bases and performance goes way downhill. If we add on top of that a whole crap load of calculations to see what the bounds of each room in the base are such that they can be heated, well, I could see there being some new bottlenecks there that we didn't previously have. So we'll keep an eye on that one, but I do think just from a fundamental quality of life standpoint, that would be a nice to have. There's also work on vehicle weapons, specifically a cannon module for the modular cars. And that one, although like all this other stuff is still on a separate branch, does look like, based on the commits, it's could be close to ready for production. And it basically is just a cannon module that will be added onto modular cars and then allow, I guess, the driver or passengers to shoot that cannon as they're driving the car. So I think that would be an interesting one. I'm also, given they started work on a minigun again, I'm wondering if a minigun attachment to the modular cars would be where they actually add the minigun. Just thinking out loud here, but that would be an interesting addition to modular cars, is popping a minigun on the top of that motherfucker. But we'll keep you posted. As with all Hack Week stuff, might not ever make it in. They're also doing some more T prototyping. Now, we did see a number of interesting Ts in this T prototyping project last week, breathing underwater T, tracking animals through objects, health regen T, auto smelting T, uh, a T that doubles the speed of weapon deploy animations. And this week is no different. We're seeing a couple other new teas make their way in, including a horse laxative tea, which would double the rate of dung production, and a horse speed tea, which, when the horse consumes, would increase top speed of the horse by 30% for 10 minutes. And then finally, also a modular car speed tea, which I guess, I don't know if you'd pour it into the engine or what, but
Stick in the driver, right?
yeah, I think the driver would like
Yeah.
drink it, but maybe you're like, here, car, sip on this tea, and then you'll
To get the
have
low
double
grade.
engine
Yeah.
power.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it ups um, the octane of that low grade. I don't know, but that's tea prototyping. They're also working on a poisoning functionality with this whole tea prototyping stuff. So if you have uh, more than three active teas, you'll just be poisoning yourself instead of turning yourself into some sort of superhuman tea driven person. So interesting stuff. Not sure if all these teas will make it in. I imagine some of them will, but they're really playing with just a bunch of different tea prototypes. And I think it would be cool to see a further flush out of some more teas. In a similar vein, we're seeing more work on the meals branch this week as well, which would be just allowing players to cook more complex meals with various raw ingredients. And then you'd imagine those meals would have better benefits with regards to, nutrition and stamina, things like that. I don't know. So we'll see. Also, there's some changes to helicopters coming in. There's a helicopter flare delay for the attack helicopters. So basically, attack helis will only be able to drop flares every 30 seconds. And they're adding some UI elements in to alert the pilot of when the flares are available and when they're not, and a little even ding sound for when the flares become available again. But that is kind of a little nerf for the attack helicopter because they won't be able to just toss flares out all the time. I guess you could still have a passenger tossing flares out potentially, but little nerf there. Also, with patrol helicopter, we're seeing some changes. There's going to be slightly more random movement across the map when going between monument to monument. So the attack helicopter will, I guess, maybe take more of a scenic route sometimes. And there's also a shift in the accuracy of rocket fire. Basically, they're making the heli aim cone dependent on the distance to target. Not sure if this is going to be equate to a more accurate, deadly patrol helicopter or the opposite, but we'll keep you posted as this gets merged in and more comes to light. And then finally, it looks like it's also going to crash in a more random way. So once it's actually destroyed and it knows it's going to go down, it looks like it's going to be more randomized in how it goes down. Once again, those are changes for the patrol helicopter. We're also seeing a bunch of miscellaneous other projects be worked on. As I mentioned, the minigun. We did see some commits around the minigun reappear. The minigun we hadn't seen in a year or two. We've known about conceptually a minigun being worked on, but we haven't seen any action on it until for a while until just now. So we'll keep you posted as more on the minigun comes through. Also, there's some fixes for map entities and loading map entities. There's more work on Tutorial Island. There's some shifts to the colliders and bounds for metal detector stashes to make them easier to melee dig up. There's some fixes for backpacks working with conveyors. They're doing more work on the monument revamp stuff, some more work on the compound rework, and more work on the harbor and specifically tweaking it for cargo ship. Not sure how the cargo ship is going to interact with this harbor, but it does look like they're accounting for it and planning for it in some manner, shape, or form. We saw some initial work on full server demos being worked on, which could be an interesting thing for content creators and for just kind of diagnosing issues on servers. There's also more work on new explosions. So I do think at some point, maybe in March, maybe a month or so later, we're going to see a whole new realm of visual effects when it comes to these explosions in the game, which would be cool. And then finally, there's more work on a new truck, which I do think will be a player controlled truck. It's a military grade M939 truck, which is a 3 axle military transport truck. And yeah, that could be interesting. Maybe like a scrap heli for the ground. But we'll keep you posted on that. Once again, there's not much to show off on staging this week, so I apologize for any lack of visuals here. And Artemis, thank you as always for very peacefully lerping through the landscape of Rust when we have nothing to show off.
That's it. No worries. No worries.
But yeah, that about does it for the recapity cap here. I think we will probably wind this puppy down here,
Yep.
um, pending any other questions.
Yep. We actually have quite a few now.
Oh yeah, okay, let's do it then.
Yeah. Is there any word on Easter and should we expect it for next month?
Yeah, there has been an Easter event uh, every year for years running. I haven't seen any specifics around planning for the Easter event. I imagine we will in the near future, but nevertheless, I do think there definitely will be an Easter event because that's one of the mainstays as far as those like holiday events that Rust runs. Easter is definitely one in the hopper, so to speak. So I think this year will be no different.
Does the trio server map size ever change or is it always the same size?
Generally speaking, our servers do the same map size week after week. We did actually just modify some of the US biweekly server maps to make them a little smaller, make them a little more PvP packed. But it's rare that we do change a map size. So if you do want to know the map size, though, you can always go to our Discord, go to the server information page, or just on the right hand side when you join like General Combo, there's a bunch of bots for each one of our servers. And if you click on those bots, you can click in to see more information about it, including the map size, UI team limits, and various other things.
Um, does anyone know if there is any new skins today? I know we had Valentine skins yesterday.
Yeah, I think there will be new skins on the item store today. Generally speaking, every Thursday afternoon, new skins go up. So I don't think this week will be any different.
Is it possible for server owners to have random spawns, more random, appear to respawn at the same place or really near the spot?
Well, in the vanilla state of gameplay, there aren't really any CVARs that I'm aware of that would allow you to do that. But I do know in the modded space, there are a number of different mods you can do around loot spawns, loot tables, and things like that. So if you're looking for that as a server owner, I definitely look at the modded space. Look at Oxide mods. Look at maybe there's some Harmony mods and the like.
Is there anything on global network basis slash global rendering?
Not seeing much around that. I know it is still planned, and I know they do want to have that in the game, but I think the big issue with that is around performance and some bottlenecks around optimization. It is still planned, but I'm not seeing it happen right now. I don't think it's necessarily going to come in for March.
How about the server transferring?
Yeah, that's a whole body of work as well. They did mention in the January dev blog that they do want to do that Nexus, and they still are planning on that Nexus server to server transfer and the whole clan system and everything like that. But I believe they said they've got like uphill battle type of thing, like a lot of work to do before that's ready to go. So I don't think we're going to see that go live in the next month or so, but maybe by the end of the year, we will see that Nexus stuff be live.
I would like a sidebar motorcycle, those in the movies where the passenger sits on the side
Dude,
and can shoot. I
Yeah.
think that would be nice too.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah, man. I'm all for that. That would be so cool. A couple more vehicles in the game, especially motorcycles, and especially with a sidecar. Are you kidding me? That would be so cool.
Very much. Is that update gonna be live right now or what?
No, this is just an update preview. We are mid-month, and so generally speaking, although there are some small hot fixes and client and server optional patches after the first Thursday update, as we go throughout the month, generally speaking, there aren't many big updates being released. The updates instead are saved for I should say the big content releases are saved for the first Thursday of the month update. So the next one of those being March 7th. So we do have 3 weeks until any new content really is expected to hit the main game. But what we do here at Rustafied is just every Thursday, same time, same place, 1 p.m. Eastern. We just go over what is going on in development, and if there's anything on the staging branch to show off, we show it off. Although this week there's not really much of anything to show off because all these Hack Week projects and various other things that we're working on are pretty much exclusively on separate branches and not available for testing on staging. But you can also check out rustified.com throughout the month as I do an article every Thursday, first thing Eastern time at midnight. It goes live and summarizes all what's going on in development in text and pictures.
Um, I got here late, but was wondering if the garage door skin from last week that was removed will remain for a few people who bought them right away.
Yeah, I think if you bought it, you get to keep it. But then once they removed it because of some that was like a copyright notice thing or
Copyright.
something like that. Yeah. So, man, people are shisty as fuck, aren't they? Like just stealing art and then throwing it on. It's like, damn, guys, that's at this day and age, especially, that's kind of bald. Also, isn't AI? Can't you just steal all your shit with AI now? I mean, and then it's like not stealing, according to a lot of people. Although a lot of artists are really pissed off about AI. Um, but yeah, can't you just have AI generate your shit for you? Anyway, if you did buy that skin, and this has happened in the past, I think how they do it is you get to keep the skin if you bought it already, but then they just take it off the store and replace it with something else, and no one new can buy it.
Yeah. Is there any news to the clan table progress?
Yeah, I mean, that's all wrapped up with that Nexus server to server transfer stuff that I was just talking about. So the clan system is, I think, only going to be active on those servers that are kind of node or Nexus did. They're calling them nexuses. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck that means, but it's basically like there's servers that are all linked together, and you can have 4 or 5 servers and then travel amongst them. That clan table, the best of my knowledge, is only going to be like active in servers that are utilizing that Nexus system, and that Nexus system is not close to being ready to go. They do still plan on doing it, but there's a large body of work to get done prior to that being able to be live. So maybe later in the year we'll see that and the clan system go live, but I definitely wouldn't hold your breath.
Mm, Who is the people talking on stream?
Well, this is Bugs here. I'm the owner of Rustafied, and I host these streams every week with Artemis and Miss D. So those are the other people talking. Say hi, guys.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah. Hi guys.
There we go.
Hell yeah. Well, I don't think there's more questions. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, a huge thank you to everyone for tuning in. It's really great having you join us every week. And I do want to thank you for supporting us because, we're not the developers of the game. We're not on the Face Punch payroll. We are just an independent organization of fans of the game who love reporting on development news and running the best servers that we can. And the only way we can do that week after week, month after month, is through the support of the community. So to everyone who tunes in and watches each week, thank you. To people who give bits and subscribe on Twitch, thank you so much. And to our wonderful, beautiful, loyal VIP customers, thank you so very much because we literally wouldn't be able to do this without you guys. So much love to you all. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back as always next week, next Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern, for another update preview stream. Once again, it's 3 weeks until the update, and we'll, of course, be there March 7th for the update stream to let you know exactly when it goes live and what you can expect to come in the game. In the meantime, check us out on X, Rustafied on X. We do some shorts whenever new stuff comes into the staging branch, and also check out rustified.com. Every Thursday, I do an article first thing Eastern time it goes live, which summarizes all this stuff in text and pictures. But yeah, just a huge thank you once again, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, Artemis and Miss D, for tuning in and be my co-MCs as always.
As always, you're welcome, Bugs.
Yep, you're welcome, Bugs. Have a great week, everyone.
Awesome. Yeah, have a wonderful week, everyone, and have a wonderful wipe. This is Bugs signing off.